Hey everybody, welcome to the Cow, and I am so glad you're chiming in this morning. Back in Oklahoma, and thank God it's raining. It's not 110 again, but it is absolutely beautiful. I thank you guys very, very much for chiming in, tuning in to these messages. Be sure and pass them around if you don't mind. You'll have to excuse my voice. The last 2 years, COVID has shut down, churches, and so I don't speak that much. Last week and the week before, I was blessed enough to be able to get out and travel again. My friends in Augusta and up by Winston-Salem, Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually got to speak 8 times in 7 days. So your voice is like a muscle. If you don't use it, then you lose it. And so anyway, I am very, very excited about being able to get back out amongst you guys again and share some time with you. I will not hold you today. And again, excuse me. But the last several weeks now, have been talking about poverty. And poverty is not just the lack of money. Poverty is a mentality. And according to psychology, poverty-mindedness is a mental illness. And I'm going to get a little more light here. So, I was thinking, I was going to go in this week to another mental illness, and I went back to this. I can't get away from it. So there's evidently people dealing with it. And hopefully what I've got to share with you this morning for a few minutes is helpful to you. I want to talk about, a lot of people say, well, I can pay my bills, I do this, I do that. That is awesome. Absolutely awesome. But if you are living with unused potential, the poverty mentality is trying to take a hold of you. And so the question that come to my mind and what started this whole barrage of study was, who or what have you allowed to hijack your potential? What have you allowed to affect your drive in life? Because unused drive is literally just this. It is unrecognized potential. And you may be thinking, well, Mark, I'm this age, I'm that age, you don't know what I've been through, yada, yada. But when God sent you here, and the word says in Jeremiah 1:5, He knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And I see you guys chiming in, and I thank you for that. But when the word says that I saw you in your mother's womb, He sent us, me, you, everyone, with great potential in this earth. But life, and I love, and Stan, Debbie, if you guys are watching, I love you guys. I was telling someone the other day, now, if you don't know, Stan Tyra is the vice president of Mark Shell Ministries. And I remember, oh my Lord, so many years ago, he came to a meeting of mine and said, I would love to have you in my church. And I said, you better hear what I teach. And he did, and he said, I want you. And Stan, even though in natural age he's older than me, he's almost like a spiritual son. And he has outgrown me, and I love it. My natural sons, Derek and Parker, I want them to outgrow me. And so I guess that's the father in me. I am not in I can't say that. I'm not in a contest of I'm up here, you're down here. Man, I want all of you to grow. I want you to find your own journey. And that's what Stan is always saying. Find your own journey, you know. And so Stan and I talked a couple of weeks ago, and I just started having these thoughts about how many believers live with unused potential. And so I began to study that thought in my mind. I didn't go to the scriptures. I started thinking about that in my mind. And I started realizing how many people have unrecognized potential because the drive you have in life is equated with your potential. And so if you've lost your drive in life, and I feel like this is going to be a very pertinent message to many of you, if you have lost your drive in life, you have absolutely come to a place of not recognizing your potential. So the enemy, and when I say the enemy, I'm not talking about the devil. The devil's been defeated. So if you were raised in church, just get that completely out of your head. I am talking about the negative thoughts of your past. What have you allowed to steal your potential? Because if you realize your potential, you won't accept where you are, and what you have is permanent. Because the mental illness of poverty is literally accepting where you are as permanent. Well, Mark, how do I know I have a poverty mentality? You're trying to learn to live with what you have. There, I said it. I said it. You're trying to learn to live with what you have. And so, of course, and some people, if they just listen to me for 1 minute or 2 minutes, they think, oh, he don't even believe in the Bible. Of course I do. I use it as a roadmap. Study my thoughts, and then I go to the original language. But I went back to a story in the book of Judges, actually the first chapter, when, excuse me, Judah was called with Simeon to go against the Canaanites and the Amalekite or the Perizzites to recover what had been lost, because there was a king in that region of a Philistine descent, and Philistine in the scripture refers to, and again, if you're a first-time listener, the Bible is metaphorical. It is a picture that is described. A Philistine in the scripture is a person that wallows in the dust of their past. Okay, so when David fought the Philistine Goliath, he was fighting against the dust of his past. And so Judah, which means praise, called on Simeon, which means the higher level of thought life. He said, we've got to go get this territory. There was a king of the Philistines. His name was Adonai, which means Lord. Bezek. Bezek in the Hebrew language means lightning or in the chains. So he was the controller of what binds you. Okay? And so it goes on to say that Adonai Bezek, and you can read this for yourself. I don't have the voice nor the time to read it to you. But Judges 1 through 5, 6, 7, you can read the story. Adonai Bezek had captured 70 kings of Israel. Now, my word of faith, friends, we are kings and priests, okay? And so the king represents our authority over ourself. The priest represents our authority over our thoughts. So we've been made kings and priests. So you can rule in both areas. And Adonai Bezek had captured people. Let's bring it up to New Covenant understanding. And I feel like today is going a little deeper in Revelation, so let's just roll with it. But the word says that Adonai Bezek cut off the thumbs and the toes of these kings. Now, if you say, well, I've read the Bible 10 times in my life, that's great. But do you understand the Bible? When Adonai Bezek, the Lord of Lightning, the controller of who you used to be, the controller of I'm not good enough, begins to come against you, he is out to come against your authority, your decision-making process, your grasping ability, which is your thumbs, and your big toes represent your ability to walk out what you believe. Now, again, hopefully that's not too deep, but there is an enemy that is out to affect what you think about yourself and how you walk out what you think about yourself. He is called, Adonai Bezek is called Lord Lightning. Lord of the chains. All right. Oh, my Lord. I started not to do this morning's program because of my voice. So just bear with me. Poverty-minded people are not people that don't have money. So get that out of your head about this teaching. Poverty-minded people who are those that have lost their thumbs and their toes. And the word says that Judah and Simeon went and destroyed those enemies and brought Adonai-Bezek back in, and they cut off his thumbs and toes and then killed him. So the question is, are you going to live with what you've been disabled with, or are you going to conquer it? And the last 2 or 3 days, I've had this question, this thought going in my mind. What happened to make you lose your drive? Now understand, when I say that, after what I've been through the last few years, I haven't lost my drive. Well, Mark, I wish I was where you were. No, that's not even the issue. The issue is, do you know your potential? You can't lose your drive if you know your potential. If you've learned to live sick, you're living with a poverty mentality. If you have learned to live broke, you're living with a poverty mentality. And so you lose your thumbs. And that's the first thing those evil thoughts come to get, is your thumb. Now, understand something. And I don't have a bottle of water in here. I'm looking for something. Okay, an ink pen. If I had no thumb, I could grab the ink pen like this. But the thumb guides the ink pen. And so that's what the Hebrew meaning of the word thumb means. It gives you direction. It gives you drive. If the enemy cuts off your thumb, you've lost your grasp of your potential. You've lost your drive of your potential. And so then the enemy would try to cut off your toes. Now, your big toes, thank God for the big toes. Because your big toe is the stabilizer of your whole body. If you, now just think about it, and you may have never, ever thought about this, but if you only have your 4 toes on each foot, how stable would you be? Because that main muscle is right there in the big toe. And so the enemy is out to affect not only your drive, your ability to grasp and direct your life, it's out to affect the ability to walk out what you believe about yourself. And so, thank you, Lord, my voice is getting better every day. So, what happened? And this was the question when in my mind, I pray in my mind. I said, Lord, what am I supposed to give the people Sunday? This was the thought that kept coming back. What has happened to cause you to lose your grip for good things in life? What was so lost in your stability and direction that you have just come to accept where you are in life is where you're going to stay in life until you die? Because poverty-minded people feel they have no power to change. That's the way poverty-minded people feel. They have no power to change. And so I naturally went into the psychology because I love the clinical studies of psychologists who bring in clinical groups and they ask them questions. Why don't you want to change? And I discovered a few main reasons why people don't want to change is because they have become comfortable being uncomfortable. Now you have to ask yourself this, and I'm talking to people right now that have the genetics of cancer, they have the genetics of diabetes, they have the genetics of obesity, they have the genetics of divorce, they have the genetics of this or that. What have you become comfortable with, even though it's uncomfortable? So let's fix it. That's what the cow is about. And I am a firm believer. I am an absolutely firm believer. And again, many of you have a church you go to. My God, I minister in buildings that have a congregation of people. But Stan, I'll give you a shout out, man. This is the son training the father. Stan and I was talking the other day, and he said, Mark, if somebody said, let's go to church, back in the Gospels, even in the book of Acts, Peter, in all of his epistles, they would have said, what do you mean go to church? Because they were taught to believe they are the church. And I've told you that repetitiously over these few years of me doing the cow. You are the church. I'm not against a gathering of believers. I am against going to a group of people. You have to act like somebody else to be accepted. I believe in a local assembly getting ideas of how to show the love of Christ in that community. But some people, they think if I don't go to church, I go to hell. You've got to get that out of your head. You've got to get that out of your head. You are the church. But since you're realizing that, I want to come along behind that mentality and say, don't stay poverty-minded. Don't get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, Mark, how do I know that I've had my toes and my thumbs cut off? It's because you get mad at yourself at what you could have done, what you should have done. You feel helpless. You feel like you have no direction. You constantly, and I mean constantly, dwell on your past failures, and you just live in that world of what could have been, what might have been. And some of you, you may have screwed up 30 years ago. Don't live in that poverty mentality of what could have been, what should have been, what might have been. You have to come to the now and say, I am uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. That's what breaks the poverty mentality. You have to become uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And so, you that are listening to me, and oh my Lord, I'm seeing you guys chime in so much, and my bifocals won't even allow me to see who is saying what. But I have come to realize that so many believers, they say, well, I'm showing my strength of the Lord because I've learned to live with what I have. You're not showing the strength of the Lord. Your strength of the Lord is revealed when every day you recognize your potential and you're talking about a better life. You're pursuing a better life. You have goals. You have dreams for a better life. Don't live in the poverty mentality. Poverty-minded people who have had their thumbs and big toes cut off, you've just built walls of excuses and you blame others. Well, this was the way I was raised. Well, you don't know what this man did to me. You don't know what this woman did to me. Can I tell you something? When you stop using, and I need you to hear me, when you stop using your past for an excuse, but start using it as your testimony, you'll see the poverty break. Stop using it as a, oh my God, it just drives me freaking nuts today. Watching the news or just in society, there are people that are using the excuses of their past for why they think the way they think. They're not even using the excuse of their past. They're using the excuses of somebody else's past to develop a mentality. But it all goes back to poverty. I love what Martin Luther King said so many years ago. He was assassinated when I was just a little bitty boy, but he made a statement. He said, I have a dream. So many years later, his niece said, the dream is over. Start living it. And so, how many believers today, even in the Bible, said, I have a dream. I have a dream. That was the Old Testament. They had a dream. Jesus came and said, the dream is over. Start living it. If you don't live it, it's not his fault. And so that's the reason I'm talking about this today. And I know this is very blunt and very in your face, but you're going to have to get over yourself. Absolutely get over yourself and say, you know what? I am not going to excuse, well, I did this because of what they did. Quit it. Just quit it. Stop blaming the other person for why you are where you are, and start realizing they and what they did was a springboard for where you're going and where God wants to take you. The word says back in Judges, and you can read it later, that Adonai Bezek, the Lord of lightning, or the Lord of the chains, bragged, I cut off the thumbs and the toes of 70 kings, and they ate crumbs under my table. How many believers are eating crumbs in life today because they live in the regret, the excuses, the blame? So all I'm saying this morning, oh my Lord, I have so gone over my time. Get your strength back. Get your thumbs back. Get your toes back. Get your direction back. Remove the walls. Just say, okay, that's what happened. I don't need an apology from you to set me free. If you're waiting on an apology, and somebody's needing to hear this, if you're waiting on an apology from somebody for you to start living, they are the Lord lightning to you. Why are you waiting on an apology? It's insecurity. And right now you can just say, you know what, God, I don't care if I hear them say I ask for my forgiveness or not. I am free. I'm getting my thumbs back. I'm getting my grasp back. I'm getting my control back. I'm getting my direction back. You've got to get rid of the blame and the anger. I'm just teaching you how to get your thumbs and your toes back. You've got to believe in yourself and believe that you deserve better. You've got to get tired of crumbs under the table. That's the bottom line. Why have you learned to live with less? It's a poverty mental illness. Because somebody took your thumbs and your toes. Some situation took your thumbs and your toes. How'd you get that way? You learned it. So you have to be very careful about who you listen to and who you follow. So many believers have learned to live in a minimalistic mentality, just enough to get by. Just enough to get by. Because this old earth is hard, it's tough. If you can just get by, one day it'll all be over and you'll be in heaven. Why can't you have heaven now? Get rid of the minimalism thinking right now. Well, Mark, so I learned to live minimalistic? Yeah. People who have lost their thumbs and their toes have learned to live in minimalism, just enough to get by. Well, Mark, I'm a believer in God. I go to church. And again, you are the church. You go together with a group of people, but you have to be careful about who you hang out with. And I love my pastor friends, and the ones I go to now, a lot of them years ago, they wouldn't even have me because I took their control from them. And maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it is what it is, and I'm too old to care. But if you're in a religious mentality, you are being trained. How do I say it, Lord? Minimalism is a demonic force dressed like a queen appearing behind pulpits. That's pretty straight. And so I decided, and again, oh my God, I'm a believer in a group of people getting together. They call it church in our society. Back then, they just knew they were the church. But if you're in a religious society, they will teach you three things. Three. Escape hell, escape judgment, and escape the earth. It's all about escape. Escape. The only way, and believe me, I taught it for 10, 15 years of this ministry because I was ignorant, asinine, and didn't study the word for myself. I'm very honest with you. But a minimalist religiosity will teach you. I think this is the longest cow I've ever done. And it was supposed to be quick because my voice isn't good. But a minimalist religious society will teach you to escape hell by living right. They won't teach you grace. They'll teach you, you've got to do this, do that, and if you messed up, come up to this altar, ask God to forgive you, and then you're back in the daisy cycle. And if you've never gotten it online, you need to download it through markshellministries.com. A series I taught some years ago called The Daisy Cycle. He loves me not. We've got to get over the daisy cycle. And then a minimalist religionist will teach you need to escape judgment. And they'll use Hebrews when it says, for it's appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. Well, it should have been translated differently. It was appointed unto a certain man once to die, and after his death the judgment. So you've already escaped judgment because you just believe Jesus died once and for all, not just for you, but for all mankind. And then they'll teach, one of these days, just learn to get by because you're going to escape this earth. Well, holy scabola. Crap. If he gave us the earth, why did he call us to escape it? I want to create that thought in you. And I don't want to lose any partners over what I'm teaching. But I'm out in this for truth, not for money. Not that I'm rich, but I will not prostitute the truth to get your money. We have been taught to escape the earth to be happy. So if you're amongst believers that are teaching the great escape of hell, judgment, and the earth, you are living in the house of Adonai Bezek. It takes your grasp of the word, it takes your direction in life, and it affects your ability to walk with confidence. Wow. I didn't know I was going to get that deep or that straight with the truth, but there's too many people hurting and dying from the mental illness of poverty. I hope this helped you guys, and again, I'm looking at my clock now. I went longer than I normally do, and I will go back and see you guys' comments. Email me at markshellministries@gmail.com. Go to the website, markshellministries.com. If you've never partnered, consider partnering. That's how the ministry does what it does. You know, God called me. He's my source, but he uses people. And your support is your seed into the message. So I thank you for that very, very much. I will look forward to seeing you next week, and my voice will be better then. So anyway, you all have a blessed day, and I will see you next week.